In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, it's open mic. Boo ha 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 ha. Again, the remix.
The podcast. How good do you want your life to be?
You gotta live on purpose, for a purpose.
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible. This is Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.
Welcome to another episode. I screwed that up. I'm going to keep it. Welcome to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is me, the Q Dog. Who are you?
Coach Rita here.
There you go. We never did talk about why I feel like I have to introduce myself all the time. It's just it's the radio thing, you know? It's the radio
thing. In you.
Yep. And hey, we are here again today with another episode of Open Mic, the Remix. And I'm going to go ahead and leave that screw up in there so you can hear that everything's just not perfect.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, that's one of the hardest things for me to do.
Me too.
Is not make it sound perfect. That was one of the things that stood in my way when I did Moran Brothers on YouTube with Josh, and we were doing our weight loss videos, is I just overthought it. And it was like, oh no, it's just I saw it in my head how it should be, and it had to be perfect. If it wasn't perfect, I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So what it turned into, what I wanted was something short and to the point and very powerful. And what it turned into was something that was long and drawn out and not really that good. So, hey, it's not perfect. I'm growing.
Right.
I'm
Good.
growing. Isn't that wonderful? Okay, so hey, here another episode out of Coach Rita's comfort zone because I asked her to come to the studio not prepared.
No notes. No nothing.
Notes, no nothing. That's right.
Just me.
And it's scary. You know what? Tell you the truth, it's even scary for me because I love when I go speak somewhere. I love to have bullet points to help keep me in the moment so I know that track that I'm going down.
Right.
And there's been a few times where I have decided I am not preparing for this because I'm going in authentic all the way, and it scares the crap out of me. But that's okay.
Right.
That's part of life. You know what I mean?
Helps you grow.
It does. It challenges you. And if you're not being challenged, you're sitting still. If you're sitting still, you're going to get moldy.
Well, I think sometimes you could take it away and look at it this way, is that seeing what's in you. Because sometimes when it is, you know, you're prepared and these are my bullet points and this is the content I'm going to use and it's all prepared. It's, you know, it's A, B, C, and D, all your ducks in the row. Coming in here, you know, no notes, no nothing. This is what we're going to talk about. It's like, okay, Rita.
Yeah.
Are you really living it? Like, is it in you? Is this what you're all about?
Yeah.
So it does challenge you, and I openly took the challenge.
That's
so
right.
Rita will see what Rita's all about.
That's right. And I know, I'm a big fan, so I know there's a lot in there. I know it. Okay. So here's one of the things, like the last episode, to take a 10-second recap, we talked about frustration. And that frustration is just unfinished business at its core.
Yes.
If you haven't heard that episode, Freddie Frustration, go listen to it. Please. I'm asking you, please go listen to it because it's going to shed a lot of light about where you are in a particular situation. And if you feel like somebody you know could be served by that episode to help them, I would not recommend saying, hey, I heard this episode and thought of you. But how about, hey, I heard this episode, it helped me. Maybe it can help you. Because maybe some people can't take, hey, you really look frustrated. You need help, bro. I could take
Frustrate them even more.
Yeah. And then they'll get frustrated.
You want to see frustration?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So here we are in the next thing that we talked about. Like we sat at the table and we were talking about this next series of episodes. The first thing was frustration. And then the second thing, and that's where I stopped taking notes. I had a few notes down and I'm like, you know what? We have to work through this kind of thing on the air. So that's what we're doing. So for overwhelmed, I got nothing. I wrote no bullet points, no nothing down because I just stopped us right there. And I said, please, let's just do this. Let's give them a peek behind the curtain of how we talk through these things and see how much that helps them. And then we're actually going to develop some shows off of that. Like one just diving in to unfinished business and what does that look like? Because I think that based on what we're getting as far as feedback and what's going on around us, even what's going on within us, that'll help us move forward. Learning how to deal with unfinished business and how scary it is.
Great topic.
You know, it is. It is. And it's just really, it's a scary thing. I still get nervous about having hard talks. I really do. It's like, what's the first, I'm rehearsing here. What's the first thing I'm going to say to bring this up? You know, it's like, what do I put out there?
Yeah.
Because generally the way I say it, it's like, okay, here comes a hard talk. It's like, so I wanted to talk to you about something because I got a beef. Usually it's like, look, I got beef with you and I need to get it straightened out.
Right.
That's the easiest way for me to approach it is I got beef with you, you know, because I don't like having beef with people. I like being at peace with people.
Right.
Unless you're an Auburn fan, and then I got beef with you no matter what.
Right.
You feel me? Okay. So let's talk about feeling overwhelmed. Coach, have you ever felt overwhelmed?
Oh my gosh. Who hasn't?
I know I have.
Yeah. I think it's I don't want to say a natural feeling, but I think more and more because of the culture that we live in, everybody takes on so much and we're all so busy. I mean, who haven't you heard say that they're so busy? And I think busyness causes this overwhelming feeling that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and being overwhelmed, I don't know if we have to measure up. And so, you know, it's like we have to do this and we have to do that. And, you know, we get consumed with social media and so-and-so's doing this and so-and-so's doing that. So I got to do this and I got to do that. And it's a very interesting time, I think, that we live in, that so many, you know, we put so much on us, like just in our relationships with our children, you know, in our work, that learning to just be, that's a great attribute.
What does it even look like to just be?
I'm not sure that people can be content in the moment. I think we've been raised in such a culture of busyness and doing, and so this is how I see being overwhelmed. It's almost like you take a cup, like your coffee cup. If you take your coffee cup, and this water bottle is the things of life, and we just keep pouring in that cup. We pour until the cuppeth run over, right?
Yeah.
And we're just so overwhelmed with all these things in life that we have to do. And pause. Just hit pause. Get the cup. Let's empty the cup. Let's get down a piece of paper, and I want you to tell me what's in that cup that you need to do. And once you write down all that stuff that's in that cup that you tell me that you need to do, I want you to prioritize that for me. Because half the time, the stuff that's in the cup is you just trying to keep up with somebody else.
Ooh.
Or you feel as though this is what it is that you need to do, based on obligation instead of really based on priority or what's in your heart to do. So let's just empty the cup and write it down, and let's go through it, you know, list by list, and let's pick out the top 3 important things that are on that. Top 5 if you have a big cup. I don't know how big your cup is.
That's right.
So, and then let's just talk about that. Let's see what's important to you, because a lot of that stuff that's in your cup is just a lot of empty space. Is it really important? Or is it just things that you consumed, you know, throughout the day? Oh, yeah, I got to do this. Oh, yeah, I got to do that. You know, what's really important? And I think prioritizing your life and saying, these are the things that are important to me today that I need to accomplish for whatever reasons, meanings that you have behind it, will release that overwhelming feeling. And hopefully the feeling of freedom will come in to say that to give me significance doesn't mean that I have to have this overwhelming feeling that I'm always busy in life.
I can't write fast enough. I wonder too, what part can frustration play in feeling overwhelmed?
Huge.
Huge.
Because
Okay.
usually it's the frustration that leads right into you feeling overwhelmed.
Okay.
Because your the cup that I used as an example is your brain, and you have all this stuff in your brain, and you need to hit the pause button and unload it. And the only way that you can unload that, for how I know, is you write it down or you speak into your phone. Get it out. You got to get it out.
Get it out.
You know, so the easiest way to do that is to either write it down or you know, so many people are techie, they could just do something on their phone and talk into their phone, and they could write down everything that's going on in their head. And it's really unloading what it is that you're carrying. And and I'm just going to put this out there. A lot of people find significance in telling everybody else how busy they are.
Oh.
So you fall into that trap of, oh, I'm so busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, because then people look at you like, wow, like,
You must be important.
right. And it brings them significance in playing the role of being busy. And a lot of times you have to ask yourself, what are you really accomplishing in being busy all the time? Like, what are you really accomplishing? Because I believe in the moment, you give 100% in the moment. It's not like you're giving 100% to 50 million different things that you're busy doing.
That's right.
I just think in the moment you're going to give, like right now, I'm giving you 100% of me. When, I go somewhere else, or I go with my kids or my grandkids, I am 100% there. I'm not 50% with you, 50% with them, 20 over here. I'm not spreading myself thin. I'm in the moment of whoever it is that's with me, in front of me, that I don't have all these overwhelming feelings of everything that I need to do, because then I'm not present to the moment.
Right. And
Because you feel overwhelmed and frustrated.
Yeah, and it's like 2 points from the last show. If you think you have to do everything alone, you're probably frustrated, and that's what's overwhelming you. If you are frustrated, this is the way that I kind of like putting a picture to it. Say you have a cup with large capacity, but if you take a smaller cup and put it inside that big cup, and we'll just call that smaller cup frustration, you're not exercising the full capacity of that cup.
Right.
Because there is something else taking up space in that cup. It's in the way. It's dominating the inside of the cup. So if you were to fill this cup, say if you were to take a cup, fill it up a quarter of the way, and then put an object in there, all of a sudden the water comes up. There's no more water. It's just whatever this outside entity is that makes it look like there's more water or feel like there's more water, because it's taken that free space hostage. And now you get into this endless cycle that anything that comes on is just another heaping helping of being overwhelmed.
Right.
So how do we address it? I think Coach Rita gave us a absolutely great picture of what to do. Press pause. Pour the cup out. Let's look and see what's inside this cup.
Yep.
We've got to. Or else we're just going to perpetually stay in a state of overwhelmed. And truthfully, that's something that really helps me, is just to take a seat for a minute. Step out of my situation. Let me really see what's going on. Why do I feel overwhelmed? What is the feeling that's over? Maybe somebody's experience. This gets down to just like the bare bones of it. I don't know if we can even explain it. I don't want to look at the dictionary version, but what if somebody's having a feeling, they don't know what it is? How would we explain what overwhelmed even feels like?
I think it's a pressure.
Okay.
For me, that's probably the best way that I would explain it. It's like this overwhelming pressure
Like
of having, like, or almost like the the walls are closing up on you.
Okay. There you go.
You know, I'm just trying to, because it's, yeah, I'm trying to give you a visual verbally of, yeah, you just feel trapped in this, everything's coming down on you.
Gotcha. And maybe it's like this too, which I just, quickly thought of. It's that mindset, like if one more thing happens,
Yes.
I'm just absolutely going to
blow.
lose it.
Yeah.
I'm going to explode. Somebody's going to get choked if one more thing happens. And it's funny how how much being frustrated affects your feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yes.
Because like we were talking about, those resources that you're dedicating to telling yourself the story over and over and over again, those are taking up valuable resources. That's like an object in the cup.
Right.
So you can't put as much in it. You can't realize the full potential of the capacity of that cup because you have an object in it. Now, how many different objects are in that cup? So little small situations that in a typical day you would be able to handle. It's that whole straw that broke the camel's back, right? So I think it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant to hit pause. Step out of yourself. Take a step back. Get quiet and get a piece of paper, like you said, Coach, and just write down everything you feel like is in this cup.
Right.
And look, maybe you're snowing yourself here. Maybe you identify something and say, "What? Really, I'm not that overwhelmed."
When you put it into perspective.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we overcomplicate things. And, like right now you could be telling yourself, like, really? Like, you just want me to sit down and get a piece of paper? You'd be amazed by you just releasing, unloading those things that are on your mind and putting it down on a piece of paper. The difference writing on a dumbass piece of paper, would make.
Right.
Don't overcomplicate it. It's not complicated. These things are very easy. We've made life so hard.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Right.
There's simple applications that you can do in just a moment in time, but because we're so freaking busy all the time, we don't have time to do that.
Right.
So it's just an excuse. It's just a reason to continue your behavior. It's just a reason to keep saying, "Oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so frustrated." Like, you don't understand. Yeah, I do. You're just not willing to do the things that you know that you need to do in order to let all that stuff go. I get it. I totally understand. I'm not going to overcomplicate life.
Right.
It's complicated enough.
Right.
Than for me to come on and say, okay, if you do A, B, and C, it will equal D, but add E, F, and then we'll get down the road and see maybe you can get this. Just do these simple applications.
Yeah.
And you would be amazed how much that it was put things into perspective. Because when you don't have a perspective of things, you're just honed in onto your own, like what you were saying earlier about having a filter. You're just honed into that instead of getting outside of yourself. Let's put this into perspective. What is the true reality that I'm facing? So if you're overwhelmed and you've written all these things down on the piece of paper, this is okay. This is what you're telling me your true reality is. Okay. Tell me what the most important things are based on this reality. And then we'll go from there. Yeah. And then you'll realize that these things that are overwhelming you aren't as important as you think they are in your head.
Yeah.
Because that's all you're doing. You're just replaying so many things in your head.
Right.
It's just really just releasing those things and just getting a clear mind on things, putting things back into perspective, prioritizing your life. What's important to me today? Because all these little things really aren't that important, and they're bogging you down, thinking that they are important, and they're really not.
Yeah. And I think I'm glad that you made that distinction, because there are some of us who aren't truly overwhelmed, but we've overwhelmed ourselves based on our choices not to handle unfinished business.
And there's personalities. Like, let me just introduce this to you. My husband and I are totally different.
Yeah.
My husband thinks if I give him a list of 5 things to do, he is so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, his personality can't handle that. Like, and we joke about this. If he has more than 2 things to do in a day, like, that's it. That's all he can handle. I understand that about him. That's who he is. That's a personality trait that he has. Today we can laugh about it. Years ago, this wasn't funny to me. It's like, really? Like, you have an issue doing 2 things during the day? Like, you feel overwhelmed? Like, get in my shoes, okay? And you know what I mean? Just being
Yeah.
a mom and, doing life, and, he couldn't function in that.
Yeah.
And I understand that about people. Understand that about your spouse. If the one is opposite of the other, if you give that person too much stuff to do in one day, they're overwhelmed and you don't do anything. And that's what mainly happens to people who are overwhelmed. They do nothing in life because they're so overwhelmed in their head, they do nothing.
Got it. So you got to know yourself.
You have to know yourself. Where I know that about my husband. If things start piling up, it's like, okay, we need to put this into perspective. What's the most important thing that we need to do? What's the thing that we always say, what is it? What's the thing that we need to put on the table and get it out, hash it out, got to get it done.
Yeah.
And that's how we work together. If you don't know that about yourself, you're going to have to discover that. Like, if you are a person that having more than 3 things in a day for you to do, and you're feeling this overwhelming feeling, then okay, it is what it is. Okay. You more so are going to have to be writing those things down.
Yeah.
That's what works for him and his personality. It's better for him to write it down like a checklist of this is it. This is the priority. If I get to these things on the bottom, great. But these are the things that I need to do.
Okay. So if you do have that personality, still writing everything
Yes.
down is a great practice.
Yes.
And then you can prioritize them. Like, what do I have to do first? If
Right.
nothing else gets done, this has to happen.
Right.
Not that it's life or death, but it is absolutely the most important thing to get done.
Right.
And then you can prioritize them from greatest of importance to the least of importance. And that's good, because there are people that, a couple things overwhelm them.
Yes.
And those are the people you want to give those couple of projects to that need time and attention. They need the great details to get done.
Right.
Whereas I'm the kind of guy, you can give me a ton of stuff to do, and I don't always stop to look at the details, because I want to hammer it out.
Yeah.
And I'll do this on the fly while I'm getting to this, and I might not pay as much attention to the details as I should. Now, I know myself very well, so if I have a lot to do and something demands detail, I'll pause and say, okay, Q,
Right.
you got to look at this really deep, because this really matters. But that's good. I'm glad that we're making the distinction there, because if we didn't, then people that get overwhelmed by that list.
It's a
and
true
pressure.
feeling. I don't want to deny that. I want to acknowledge that and know that, we're all wired differently. But I feel as though society itself, and the fast pace that we live in, and per se having to keep up with everything, we find ourselves overwhelmed more than not, than just being and just being in a state of rest. People don't live there unless you've got, some of these applications down that you understand what's priority.
And I think another line of this that we should kind of discuss is the people who are intentionally overwhelming themselves so they don't have to deal with some unfinished business.
Yes.
Or they don't have to deal with a circumstance, or they don't have to deal with a person that they need to get to and get some closure on, or negotiate through, or just have an open conversation about. Then you can just kind of rely on the crutch of being overwhelmed.
Right.
And what that does is it just creates resentment within you, I think, and the people that you're supposed to have closure with creates resentment for them, and that's just taking up resources in your mind
Right.
and causing you just to continually bury things, and to me just makes the frustration part of things even worse. So we got a couple, like if we're looking at it here, we got people that what we want you to do first is, if you feel overwhelmed, if you have that feeling like the walls are closing in on you, if you have that feeling like if I get one more thing to do, I am going to absolutely double fist punch somebody in the neck because I'm going to explode. If you have those feelings about situations going on in life, then you are most likely overwhelmed.
Yes.
So now you've become aware, oh, crap, I'm overwhelmed, and I'm lashing out at people, and I'm not all in the moment with people. I'm not present in the moment because I'm constantly thinking about all the things that are overwhelming me. And it's weird how your mind can just reinforce whatever you're putting in.
Yes.
Just over and over and over and over again. And then it's like it becomes a part of you, and now it's a state of being for you. So now that you've identified, oh, crud, I'm overwhelmed. Coach Rita gave you a great exercise, and I'm asking you guys, just do it, please. She gave you the idea, or she gave you the visual concept that it's a cup, and it's a cup that is full of water, and then the water's just like pouring out. So what do you want to do? You want to pour the cup out and make a list of every single thing in your mind that makes you feel overwhelmed, right? Like everything, right?
Everything.
And then
Free your mind.
free your mind. The rest will follow. Yeah, that's why I'm a podcaster, not a singer. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a piece of paper and you're gonna write all these things down. Now, maybe your list is not that big. Okay, so we talked to you about that too. And if your list is not that big, there's something in the cup that's taking up space, and it might be frustration. If it is frustration, let's figure out what you're frustrated about. Okay? That means you got to go backwards for just a minute. And then once you kind of figure out what that unfinished business is, you can go back and look at that list of things that are overwhelming you. You kind of recalculate. Like you recalibrate yourself to say, okay, I'm not overwhelmed.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and it's like, thank God that is out. I'm just so happy I'm free now. Give me more. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you are legitimately overwhelmed and you have a bunch of things there, it's time to start prioritizing what those things are. And that way you can put most important at the top, least important at the bottom, and figure out who else is there with the village approach that you can get involved to come alongside you and help you, because we're not trying to do life alone. Is that fair to say?
Good point. Yes.
And
I
then
think so.
if you have, go back to this real quick. If you only have a few things to do and you figure out that you were frustrated, you come back and look at your list and it's not that long, but you still feel overwhelmed. Maybe it's time to get to know yourself a little bit better, to identify what is that personality type that I have. And, we talked about that early on, in the DISC assessment. And there's people like, I think the C personality that change is hard for, and road bumps or speed bumps can kind of throw you off course. Just get to know yourself a little bit better. And you can reach out to us to help you with that. You can reach out to us with questions about, well, here's my list, because a list of 10 things for me is not a big deal. A list of 10 things for my wife can be a big deal. And I think it's brilliant that you brought that out, because like we go through finances, and the company I work for gave me this great idea at one point. You got the big easel, those big pads of paper that you write on.
Yeah.
Well, Post-it makes a great one that you can rip off and stick on the wall. And it's like, you know what? We keep talking about these things we need to do, and we feel like we're overwhelmed. Funny enough, let's put them up on the wall. Let's write everything down we can think of, and let's assign a date to it. And let's minimize the impact that it, this is very important. Get this done, get this done, get this done. And we kind of came at it like a team. And before you know it, we're
checking off.
We're checking them off. They're done. So now we are not overwhelmed anymore.
Because you release that information out of your mind, that it frees a part of you that could get things done that need to be done according to what's priority.
Right.
Instead of all this stuff in your head, and you're trying to decipher it in the moment.
Right. So that's like a fantastic exercise to do for this episode. So now what we got to do is from there, we have to discover, after we've discovered, how we are or what we're doing, we have this list. It's prioritized. How do we start to move forward? And if you get to the place where you start feeling overwhelmed again, you got to pause. Find out what's in the cup.
Right.
It's like that. What's the name of that movie with Brad Pitt? Seven. What's in the box? What's in the box? I just think of that when I'm saying what's in the cup. What's in the cup? You got to figure out what's in the cup. So pour the cup out. It's easy. Pour it all out. And that exercise of writing everything down, like visualize in your mind, I'm pouring the cup out. You can pour it out slow. You can pour it out fast. You can turn it over, shake it out, and then you start writing it down. This exercise, I'm telling you, is going to set you free because now it's out.
Right.
And then you can decide what goes in. And if you get overwhelmed again about thinking about all these things, just pour out the cup. Pour out the cup and do it. Doesn't matter how many times it takes. But when you start doing that and you reinforce it and you get in the habit of pouring out the cup and then prioritizing what you have to do, you're going to find that your brain appreciates that because actually you're like making a new pathway in your mind. Mm-hmm. So now when things fall on top of you, it's like, I'll just pour out the cup. I'll write it down.
Right.
I think the one thing that I want to circle back to for just a second, and I feel good about this episode because I think we've helped people identify, given them an exercise to do, some action items to follow up on, is if you are frustrated, I think you really have to, remember I said I didn't want to say you've got to. I think it's important for us to take these frustrations head on because if you don't, you have objects in the cup that are just taking away space for much needed water. Because you do need something in your cup so that you can feel good and proud and accomplishing and you're doing your part in your marriage or your life or for your kids or, society as a whole, for humanity.
Right.
Nobody's asking you to run with a cup that's full all the time. But we don't want these objects taking up space in our cups because all they do is they play a negative role in what we could actually be doing to contribute, to be a positive influence,
right.
to make a positive impact. I hope all that metaphorical talk makes sense. Mm-hmm. Does it?
Yeah,
Good.
Definitely.
All right. I feel I'm saying that this episode is very helpful. It's very helpful. And I'm asking you, if it's helped you at all, share it with somebody. Because when Coach Rita shared the Ed Milet podcast with me, it changed my life. And that's what we're giving you here, is things that changed our life that you can put into practice. And we commit to being practical.
Very practical.
Keep it super simple. Kiss it.
Kiss it.
Keep it super simple. Because if you're here, you're listening, you're a part of what we're doing, you just need it simple so you can put it into practice as quickly as possible. And we do give you those tools that you need time to master. Start with this one here if you feel overwhelmed.
Right.
Start
somewhere.
Yeah, pour out the cup. Mm-hmm. Pour out the cup. I think that's a great title for the show. Pour out the cup.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead for that. And let me tell you, look, if this episode didn't help you at all, we will give you your money back. Okay? Every dime you pay.
Free of charge.
We'll give it back to you. It's got a 30-day money-back guarantee. But what we really want, aside from all this joking, is to hear how it helped you. Or maybe it didn't help you. Or what do you think you need to get better at it? It's time. Change your life. Take responsibility. Go for it. All in. Be all in. That's a demand when it comes to man versus marriage. You got to be all in. So why don't you reach out to us? Why don't you email us? Email us at coach@manversusmarriagepodcast.com. That's coach@man, V like victory, S like success, marriagepodcast.com. Join the revolution on Facebook. There's lots of great information on Facebook. The post that we've put out, the engagement that we had with, the 31 days of Married Tipsmas. There's a lot there that can help, energize you and just help you change and progress into the best version of yourself possible. So that's at MVSM Podcast. There you go. That's Facebook. Email us, Facebook us, and we will be back for another episode of Man versus Marriage.
The podcast.
How good do you want your life to be?
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible.
This is Man versus Marriage.
The podcast.